Number 10. Amelia Earhart. In the 1930s, the American hero was one of the most famous people on the planet and subsequently had the most famous disappearance in history. In 1937, Earhart set out on a journey that was both ambitious and mysterious. She aimed to be the first woman to fly all the way around the globe. Unfortunately, she never returned. She was flying alongside her navigator Fred Noonan and left Miami on June 1st, and by July the 2nd, they'd made it to New Guinea with plans to fly to Howland Island, a small uninhabited landmass between Hawaii and Australia, but the following day they were nowhere to be found. Somewhere en route, while dealing with poor weather and low fuel, the two lost contact with the Coast Guard and basically vanished into thin air. What ensued was a chaotic search and rescue mission that costed the US Navy $250,000, but unfortunately it was to no avail, and in January of 1939 she was declared dead. To this day, Earhart's disappearance has become host to a number of conspiracy theories, some people even suggesting that she was abducted by aliens. Number 9. Jimmy Hoffa. He was very famous in the US in the middle of the 20th century, and he was able to work his way up to the position of president of the country's largest and most powerful labor unions. That made him very well known, but his crimes made him notorious. We're talking about jury tampering, conspiracy, wire fraud, mail fraud, and attempted bribery. He also allegedly had several connections with the world of organized crime. But after a 1965 conviction by a federal jury for taking funds from a trucking company and trying to funnel a bribe to a juror's son, Hoffa had no choice but to step down as the union's president. Then on July 30th, 1975, a 61-year-old Hoffa called his wife from a Detroit restaurant to tell her that his lunch appointment with two known organized criminals was cancelled because the guys didn't show up. That's the last time anybody heard from him. So where did he go? Well, there are several theories that mobsters got to him, then buried him in the Giant Stadium in New Jersey, or that Hoffa was the victim of a professional hit. But most people had put his disappearance down to his heavy involvement in the world of organized crime. Number 8. Joe Pichler. In the late 90s and early 2000s, the child and teen actor appeared in a series of supporting roles in a number of movies and TV shows, including Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Touched by an Angel, Varsity Blues, and most notably as Brennan Newton in 2 sequels in the Beethoven movies. The young star had been working relentlessly in the industry, starring in commercials as early as 6 years old. But unfortunately, he disappeared before he fully reached adulthood. He was so young when he went missing in his Washington State hometown in 2006, only 18. According to the Charlie Project, Pichler spoke with a friend at around 4 a.m. on January 5th, just a few weeks before his 19th birthday. He then proceeded to leave his apartment untouched, unlocked, and with the lights on. Strangely, he only took his wallet and his car keys before he vanished without a trace. But there were allegedly several poems found in his apartment that made it seem like he was not in the best place mentally. 4 days later, Pichler's Toyota Corolla was located in Bremerton, and authorities suspected that Pichler may have jumped to his death off a bridge over the Port Madison Narrows. But there was no real evidence of that, and his remains were never recovered. Number 7. Harold Holt. He was nearly 2 years into his term as Australia's 17th Prime Minister when one day in December of 1967, he decided to go swimming at a deserted Cheviot beach in Victoria, but he never returned to shore. The mystery left Australians scratching their heads and wondering how a nation had managed to misplace an entire prime minister. Some people pointed to the weather as a possible cause, considering it was a total windy mess at Cheviot Beach that day, and one eyewitness claimed that the waves were quite high and that there was a fairly strong undercurrent. But it wasn't long before various conspiracy theories started to emerge, with some saying that he purposely faked his own death to start a new life with a mistress, or maybe he was kidnapped by foreign adversaries and interrogated for political secrets. Although Holt's body was never recovered, a 2005 investigation concluded that he drowned. No one was satisfied with that explanation, as those close to him claimed he had incredible powers of endurance underwater. Strange. Number 6. Scott Smith. Canadian band Loverboy was one of the biggest rock bands in the early 80s, with hard-charging hits like Hot Girls in Love and Working for the Weekend, which is still popular to this day. But the legacy of the band was marred by the disturbing disappearance of bassist Scott Smith at sea on November 30th, 2000. According to Rolling Stone, after playing with his band in Vancouver, Scott, his 2 friends, and his girlfriend set out for Mexico on a 37-foot sailboat when disaster struck. They were sailing through a storm which got increasingly violent, and they had just made it off the coast of San Francisco before being swept off by a 25-foot 50-foot wave. Scott was knocked off the deck of the vessel and into the water, and just like that, he was gone. His friend said of the incident, quote, "We turned back around but couldn't find any of the debris or cushions or the man overboard pole." This was really sad because although the Coast Guard helicopters arrived within 20 minutes of Scott going overboard, they found nothing. After a 133 square mile Coast Guard search, which was a private search and rescue, he was presumed dead. Number 5. Yelenia Carisi. She was essentially already famous the moment she was born in 1970. Yelenia's father, Albano Carisi, was a popular Italian singer in the 1960s and won their local version of the Eurovision in 1968 and sold 1 million copies of his song Noel Soul. In 1970, he married American singer-songwriter Romina Power, who was the daughter of mid-century movie superstar Tyrone Power, and they became a highly successful double act in Europe, as well as the parents of 2 kids, including Yelena. She studied and performed in various shows with her parents, among others, but then decided to take a different path and travel the world. But on December 30th of 1933, Yelenia started a trip in New Orleans. Before that, she was in South and North America. She had been living with a street musician in a rundown hotel in New Orleans who, according to reports, was physically and verbally violent towards her. Yelenia left on the night of January 6, 1994, leaving her passport and luggage behind, but she never materialized and has been missing ever since. Number 4. Bison Dele. This one is extremely sad. When Bison Dele was signed with the Detroit Pistons in 1997 for 7 years and $50 million, the organization landed a versatile power player who was entering his prime. But the hugely successful NBA star decided to search for a deeper meaning of life and eventually became a world-traveling poet. He even learned how to sail and bought a 55-foot catamaran that he dubbed Hakuna Matata and sailed the South Pacific. He and his girlfriend were about to set sail from Tahiti when they had a surprise visitor, his older brother Miles DeBoard, who showed up unexpectedly. On July 7, 2002, Bison set sail. On board were his girlfriend, Serena Carlin, the ship's captain, Bertrand Saldo, and his older brother Miles. But they never made it to Hawaii. 3 people vanished at sea. On July 20th, Miles brought the boat back to Tahiti, but he was the only one on board. Police found blood traces and gunpowder on the ship, and he was later arrested for forgery after stealing Bison's identity. But without evidence of the suspected murder, Miles was never charged. It's important to note that the brothers had a very strained relationship throughout much of their life. Many people suggest that Bison's brother was jealous of him, and he probably spent his life living in his brother's shadow, but we'll never really know what happened for sure. Number 3. Michael Rockefeller. If he was anyone else, his disappearance in 1961 would not have been big news. He would have just been another spoiled rich kid who went looking for adventure and found a little too much of it. But he was Michael Rockefeller, from one of the most iconic families in American history, the son of the famous Nelson Rockefeller. So his disappearance rocked the world of New York socialites, and the world sat up and paid attention. This story is extremely twisted and strange and remains one of the biggest mysteries to date. On November 19th, 1961, he decided to go boating around New Guinea, the island that is split between Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, doing some soul searching or maybe just trying to make his friends back home jealous. According to Smithsonian Magazine, Michael was 7 months into his trip across the Asmat region of New Guinea when his boat overturned after being hit by a wave. He managed to swim to shore to look for help, which is where he disappeared without a trace. From there was a 2-week search involving ships, airplanes, helicopters, but nothing turned up. His disappearance was even the subject of a Netflix documentary, as they attempted to confirm that Michael was eaten by cannibals. Number 9. Hale Boggs. At the time he went missing, Hale Boggs was one of the most famous politicians in America. A Democrat from New Orleans, Boggs had sat on the Warren Commission investigating JFK's assassination. He had a notable career with a personality that many people would call colorful. He even verbally attacked J. Edgar Hoover in Congress, but he really became famous for doubting the lone gunman theory of the JFK shooting. So Boggs was a very prominent person in 1972, which is why the nation was so shocked when he disappeared. On October 16th that same year, Boggs was in Alaska helping a fellow congressman's re-election bid. The two got on a light aircraft heading for a remote city in Alaska, and according to author Robin Bearfield, they were never seen again. The thing is that the weather was terrible that day, and as soon as they failed to show up to the city of Juneau, everyone had guessed what had probably happened. Then the biggest search operation in US history was launched, with 90 planes searching 325,000 square miles of Alaska, but no trace of the missing aircraft or its occupants were ever found. To this day, there are some out there who think Boggs was killed for his work investigating the JFK assassination, but it was a small plane and bad weather, so most people wrote it off as an accident. Number 1. Patrick McDermott. He worked as a cinematographer on a handful of short films in the 2000s, but he was way more well known for his personal life, seeing as he was a romantic partner of 9 years of pop star Olivia Newton-John. This one is really crazy. Patrick was on board a Mexico-bound fishing boat called the Freedom of California in June of 2005, but didn't make it back to the ship. The NBC investigative news show even hired a private investigator, Philip Klein, to find the 48-year-old cameraman. The investigator theorized that Patrick faked his death and vanished to cancel out his substantial debts and allow his son to cash in on a $150,000 life insurance policy. In fact, Klein firmly believed that Patrick was alive, citing 17 credible reported sightings, many of them from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, the last place a cinematographer was ever seen alive. But according to CBC, another investigation ruled that he had likely drowned in the Pacific Ocean. But the most shocking revelation came in 2017 when the Australian magazine New Idea reportedly published pictures that appeared to be Patrick alive and well in Mexico. The photos were heavily criticized and refuted, but many people still believe that he is out there somewhere.
Starting off the list at number 10 is Mo'Nique. It has been a year since the actress rocked the industry by going head to head with Netflix, saying that she didn't get paid what other comedians did for her comedy special. Things went as far as Mo'Nique demanded a boycott against Netflix and turned down the $500,000 they offered her for the special. I'll take that $500,000. Amy Schumer got $13 million for hers, to put it into some perspective for you. So I guess, yes, that is a big difference. Long story short, she caused a huge controversy saying that she didn't get paid as much because she was black. She then went on to insult about 80% of fellow entertainers in the industry who weren't supportive of her claims. And that is when the queen of daytime TV stepped in, Oprah. The two of them were once like family, pretty much best friends, but had an issue back in 2009 after Oprah brought Mo's family on her show without her consent. She ended up bringing her mom and her brother, who Mo'Nique has openly accused of sexually assaulting her, so obviously there was a lot of beef there. They were able to work things out, but when it came to these more recent scandals with Netflix and the rest of Hollywood, Oprah called Mo'Nique negative during an interview, and she clapped back at Oprah, calling her a coward. We haven't heard much from her ever since, and she hasn't acted in anything since 2016. So girl, where are you at? Where are you hiding? Coming in at number 8 is Stacey Dash. You probably know her as the actress from the iconic movie Clueless. She was blacklisted a few years ago after her political views cost her her entire career. She's a conservative who was clever enough to write a book on her blacklisting experience and called it "There Goes My Social Life from Clueless to Conservative." It all happened by one simple tweet. During the Barack Obama election, she tweeted out, "Vote for Romney, the only hope for your future." She said she tweeted it out because she didn't want Obama to have another 4 years. They were her beliefs and she was sticking by them. But when she woke up the next day, everything was different. She spoke about it during an interview in 2016 and said, "I've been blacklisted. My agents have dropped me. I haven't auditioned in over a year because my beliefs and what I stand for." After that, she disappeared from Hollywood basically. We stopped hearing about her, but the mystery of her disappearance ended just 2 days ago. She was back in the headlines, but this time it was because of her mugshot. Turns out she was arrested for domestic battery after an incident with a male. So things are not looking too good for her. And at number 6 is Roseanne Barr. The actress once had her own ABC show titled after her, Roseanne, which is why it is such a shame that she lost it all by another single tweet. People are losing their careers over Twitter. Maybe it is time to delete your account. Besides her work, she's also known for being a Trump supporter, which of course has caused her some controversy. However, it was a specific tweet back in May 2018 that had her career spiral out of control. Her tweets were about Valerie Jarrett, a senior advisor to the former President Barack Obama. In her tweet, she compared Valerie to the cross between the Muslim Brotherhood and the movie Planet of the Apes. ABC cancelled her show immediately, which was supposed to reboot the same day, coincidentally. As of January of this year, her Twitter was off limits and she moved into her mother's basement in order to get out of LA. She said that she was worried that everyone hated her and just wanted to avoid the public eye. We haven't heard or seen much from her, but the paparazzi is still trying. A more recent image surfaced a few months ago of Roseanne looking all disheveled outside of her home in Salt Lake City, Utah. Apparently she was trying to take a picture of the paparazzi's license plate. She looks like a damn hot mess. Halfway through the list at number 5 is Brendan Fraser. 10 years ago he was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but then he suddenly disappeared. For 90s babies like me, you would know him from the Mummy franchise, George of the Jungle, and the Looney Tunes. After 2008, he disappeared from starring in big movie roles and people started saying it was due to a drug addiction. But he finally came out with the truth years later, admitting that it had to do with an incident of sexual assault. He He claimed that he was once physically groped by Philip Burke, a former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Burke called the allegation a, I quote, total fabrication, but still sent Brendan an apology letter after the actor complained to the HFPA. Since coming out with his story, he has slowly been returning to some acting roles, but for the most part, he just lays low at his home in New York. He actually bought a big house that overlooks a farm and has spent the last year going back and forth between home and Toronto. He loves spending time with his horses and relaxing down his little dirt road. Definitely a big step back from the Hollywood lifestyle. Here we are, number 4, with Paula Deen. For years you would have seen her face plastered all over the Food Network. This was until a lawsuit was filed against her by Lisa Jackson, accusing the celebrity chef of racial discrimination. Lisa is Paula's former general manager at one of her restaurants, so they were once very close. She claims that Paula was using the N-word when talking about African Americans. She was asked during an interview if she has ever used this word, and her response was, yes, of course, it's just what they are, they're jokes. Most jokes are about Jewish people, rednecks, black folks. I can't determine what offends another person. After her statement, networks canceled her TV programs worldwide and stores even stopped selling her products. She disappeared from the public eye for a while, but was recognized once again after making insensitive comments about another Food Network star that passed away. Chef Carl Ruiz died at the age of 44, and many celebrity chefs posted beautiful tributes in his honor. However, while appearing on the Big J show, she was asked about his death, and her response was, I'm not familiar with him, but I'm sorry to hear that. You know, they say the restaurant business will kill you. No pun intended. She laughed it off, but no one was laughing with her, and just when you thought she might get off the blacklist, she done did it again. Dug herself a deeper hole. Taking the number 3 spot on our list is J.D. Salinger. Everyone who went through high school had to read the book The Catcher in the Rye, which was written by a famous author, J.D. Salinger. He sadly passed away in 2010 at the age of 91, but before that, his career took a turn and he went into hiding after being blacklisted, but we never even knew. In 2013, 2 authors named Shane Salerno and David Shields published a book called Salinger, which revealed the author's crazy life and uncovered some very heartbreaking stories. Turns out he actually never spoke about his time in the World War II, and he ended up checking himself into a mental institution after leaving to help him deal with what he had witnessed in the war. Once he left the institution, he actually went back into the army and participated in the denazifying of Germany, but because of this, there were times that some of his books were turned down. Publishers turned him down because they thought that he was crazy. Shane Salerno said during an interview, being told that he was crazy was a great wound to him. In fact, he teared up in the room and was deeply, deeply hurt. They said that the effects of the war and being turned down as a writer sent him into this life of isolation. He disappeared from everyone and went on to live a very private life. Honestly, after hearing this story, I feel like I really underappreciated the whole Catcher in the Rye book. Like, I hated reading that. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I probably did those things where you googled the notes and it like sums it up for you. Taking second place on our list is Lelaine, the adored Disney star from the hit TV series Lizzie McGuire. Fans started questioning where she went when she didn't show up in the final episodes of the series, and when they didn't see her return for the Lizzie McGuire movie either. In the movie, they said her character was on a family vacation in Mexico, but the real reason she went missing is because she was actually arrested and pled guilty to the possession of crystal. Somehow she managed to keep it all hidden during the time that it was going on. It actually wasn't until she had a warrant out for her arrest that it made headlines. She was charged with a felony after not showing up for her court appearance. After her legal issues were all sorted out, she went on to work a regular job in LA where she said it just paid the bills. It was recently announced that Lizzie McGuire was coming back with a reboot, so fans are wondering if maybe she will be making a return. Is she going to be invited? Will she say yes? We're gonna have to wait and see. Taking our number 1 spot is Richard Simmons. The hilarious exercise guru taught his last exercise class in 2014, and we haven't seen him ever since. Like, literally, he walked out of the Beverly Hills studio and wasn't seen publicly for over 3 years. A podcast was created called Missing Richard Simmons, which claimed that he was being held hostage in his Hollywood Hills home by his housekeeper, or that he was possibly transitioning into a woman. Rumors started spreading, but his brother Lenny Simmons came forward with a statement saying, I quote, "He's not sick. These things about him transitioning into a woman are ridiculous. After 40 some odd years, he just decided that he wants to rest, he wants time to himself." The only reason he ever found himself blacklisted was because of his choice to leave and how he went about it, without any explanation at all. Fitness friend Billy Blank said in June 2019 that he thinks Richard will be making a comeback, but Richard's representative declined to comment on it. I mean, he's 70 years old now. Let the man rest.
In at number 10, Geena Davis. Geena Davis has received numerous accolades for her acting work in both film and television, and is noted for her portrayals of strong and authentic female characters, as well as her involvement in advocacy for for women in the industry. When she won her first Oscar in 1988 for The Accidental Tourist, Gina became a massive star in Hollywood. She went on to do back-to-back roles in hits like Beetlejuice and Thelma and Louise. When the early 2000s rolled around though, Gina decided to step away from acting because the roles she was getting lacked complexity and the projects just weren't that interesting. Instead, she decided to start the Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media in 2004 to increase the presence of female representation in film and television. She did make a comeback though when she joined a documentary called This Changes Everything, as well as the Netflix female wrestling comedy called Glow. In at number 9, Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan began her acting career in 1981 with minor roles before she joined the cast of the CBS soap opera called As the World Turns the following year. After that, she began to appear in a variety of supporting roles throughout the 1980s in big box office films such as Top Gun and When Harry Met Sally. By 1989, Meg Ryan had gained widespread attention for receiving her first Golden Globe nomination, which just really established her as an internationally known actor. When it came to romantic comedy flicks, everyone wanted to cast Meg. She was by far one of the most successful actresses in the 1990s and early 2000s because of this. That being said, Meg Ryan suddenly disappeared from Hollywood after a single role as a school teacher in a racy R-rated film ended her career. Meg thinks that because people had pigeonholed her as this comedic and lighthearted actress, they were almost appalled watching her act in anything that wasn't that good girl archetype. She was shocked at the vicious reactions that she received for being naked in one of the scenes, and thus being in the public eye suddenly made her feel isolated. Ryan was 41 at the time of the film's release, and the nudity just wasn't that big of a deal to her, but nonetheless, she disappeared from Hollywood. In at number 8, Rick Moranis. Back in 1980, Rick Moranis was just starting out in his career. He landed a role in the Canadian comedy series called SCTV, working alongside comedy legends like Harold Ramis, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, and John Candy, many of whom Rick would go on to work with in the future. The reason for Rick disappearing from Hollywood is actually quite sad. After his wife Anne passed away from breast cancer in 1997, he immediately had to shift his focus on raising their 2 children. In all of these interviews that he did much later, Rick mainly stayed very nonchalant about his choice to leave Hollywood to become a stay-at-home dad. During an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 2015, he said, "I was working with really interesting people, wonderful people. I went from that to being at home with a couple of little kids, which is a very different lifestyle, but it was important to me. I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever. My life is wonderful." Although he did sort of leave Hollywood, the comedian hasn't stopped working. He's almost exclusively done voiceover work from 1997 to 2006. In at number 7, Mike Myers. To me, Mike Myers will always be my comedy idol. I mean, his performances in Shrek, Wayne's World, and Austin Powers were so funny and over the top that I still laugh at them in 2020. Myers was also extremely popular as well during his time with Saturday Night Live, for which a sketch of his was even transformed into the movie Wayne's World. His troubles with Hollywood though started way back in the year 2000 when he signed on to another film also inspired by an SNL skit called Sprockets. Yes, that was the name. Halfway through production, the comedian left citing issues with the script. Him bailing on this production though resulted in 2 lawsuits from Universal Studios, one of which was for $30 million. He then went on to do that terrible live action version of Cat in the Hat, which absolutely tanked in the box office. The real reason he disappeared from Hollywood though was to put more focus on being a husband and a father. In at number 6, his comedy duo buddy, Dana Carvey. Best known for his work as a cast member on SNL as well, and of course Garth from Wayne's World. Dana is an actor, stand-up comedian, and an excellent impressionist. Dana Carvey has audiences cracking up at his George Bush impression and his church lady character during 7 seasons of Saturday Night Live, and created unforgettable catchphrases with Mike Myers in 2 Wayne's World movies. But at the peak of his career in the late 1990s, Carvey stepped away to raise his 2 sons Dex and Thomas with his wife Paula since 1983. While speaking with People magazine, Carvey spoke about his decision to leave Hollywood. In the interview, he said, "I have friends who get stressed about fading or not being as hot. I never quite engaged that. I have a lot of drive to try to be the best I can be, have people be blown away by what I do and repeating it. But the other side of me is fine wherever I am." He also was experiencing a lot of health complications during the late 90s, which caused him to undergo 4 angioplasties in less than a year, followed up with a double bypass surgery. However, his health is tip-top magoo now, and his focus seems to be shifting back to stand-up comedy. Actually, he put out a great stand-up comedy hour on Netflix. Check that out. In at number 5, Jack Gleeson. Jack Gleeson is an Irish actor that received critical acclaim for playing the role of Joffrey Baratheon in the HBO series Game of Thrones. Jack began acting at the age of 8 in the Independent Theatre Workshop, and when asked why he stopped acting at the height of his career, really, Gleeson told Entertainment Weekly that he just wasn't enjoying it anymore. In the interview, he said, "The answer isn't interesting or long-winded. I've been acting since age 8. I just stopped enjoying it as much as I used to, and now there's the prospect of doing it for a living, whereas up until now it was always something I did for recreation with my friends or in the summer for some fun. I enjoyed it. When you make a living from something, it changes your relationship with it. It's not like I hate it, it's just not what I want to do. He will be sorely missed." Not Joffrey though, I hated that character. In at number 4, Sean Connery. Sean Connery without a doubt will always be James Bond to me, thanks to a run as the character from 1962 to 1983 that saw him starring in 7 films as a secret agent 007. By 1999, People magazine had declared him as the sexiest man of the century, and then to cap it all off, he was knighted in 2000. That's a great decade for him. One of his last big box office films that he did though was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in 2003. However, the film was not very well received and was mostly a commercial failure. I still loved it. Following this film, he kept fairly quiet about his future plans until revealing in 2006 that he had retired from acting. After accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award at the American Film Institute, Connery told the crowd, "I have retired for good. It's been a bit rough since Christmas, but I'm perfectly okay and I feel well. In fact, I'm working on a history book." History written by Sean Connery. I'd read that. In at number 3, Angus Jones. Angus Jones is perhaps best known for playing Jake Harper in the CBS sitcom 2.5 Men, for which he won 2 Young Artist Awards and a TV Land Award. The show was the most popular sitcom in the US with an average audience of around 15 million people. By 2010 though, he was the highest paid child star in television at just 17 years old. In 2012, Jones had turned 18 and really started to feel awkward with the new adult storylines that he was doing for the show. As a result of growing up, the writers could no longer give him these childish lines and innocent mannerisms that Jake was so well known for. By November of 2012, Angus said that he had been baptized and no longer wanted to appear on the show anymore. He even went as far as saying that the show is filth and thus conflicted with his newfound religious views. In at number 2, Carly Schroeder. Not too many people would probably even recognize Carly today, but way back she was best known for her recurring role on the Disney Channel series Lizzie McGuire. Originally booking it as a one-time appearance, she ended up shooting 12 episodes of the show and also appeared in the Lizzie McGuire movie in 2003 in the same role. Unlike most people though, Carly took a completely different route from retiring from acting. In February of 2019, Schroeder announced that she would be joining the United States Army. She then attended the Officer Candidate School and planned on working as an officer in the Military Intelligence Corps. She also received her commission as a second lieutenant on September 20th, 2019. Carly also explained during an interview with Business Insider that she didn't really talk about her time as an actress so that she could blend in and have people not treat her differently. Probably a good move. Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes rose to prominence in Hollywood as a child star in the late 1990s and early 2000s on Nickelodeon through the sketch comedy series called All That, which then led to her own spin-off series titled The Amanda Show. From there, her career seemed to be on the right path according to Hollywood rules. She was now starring in some bigger feature films, but because her life had been in the spotlight for so long, her downfalls were also highly publicized. She began to struggle with substance abuse and her legal issues, resulting in a hiatus from acting in 2010. She attempted to make a comeback in 2018, but nothing really happened, and thus she began to disappear from Hollywood. Probably for the best.
Up next, number 9 is Kev Jumba. His real name is Kevin Wu, and he is one of the most mysterious vanishing acts in YouTube history. Back in 2008, his online name Kev Jumba had the 3rd most subscribed channel on the platform thanks to his blogs and music video parodies. As his career went on, he got involved in other parts of the industry like acting, but that part of his career was short-lived. In 2015, it was reported that he was hit by a car in LA and that he broke his spine and his lungs collapsed. So his videos went silent for a while and no one really knew what happened. Turns out that he actually checked himself into a mental health facility because the injury sent him into a depression. During that time, rumors were spreading saying that he had joined a cult. Like, this huge rumor literally was that he joined a cult and vanished. But he later said that the Buddhist organizations that he did get involved with were not a cult at all. Sliding into spot number 7 is Ray William Johnson. For many years, he basically was YouTube. He was the creator of the popular channel called Equals3, which landed him as the most subscribed YouTuber on a number of occasions. He also took the prize of being one of the most viewed channels on the entire platform for some of the months. But in 2014, he decided it was time to quit and he just up and left the channel. Later on, people realized that he continued to act as the producer of the channel, as well as producing some other web series called Buzz Lightyear, Comedians On, and Top 6. The series all started with some success, but 2 of them were cancelled later on. He then got into film and became a co-creator to his own film production company, which is pretty cool. But overall, his career just seemed to kind of fade out in comparison to his time on YouTube. Now apparently you can find him creating his own music and doing some vlogs, but his decision to leave YouTube is still something that not many people understand. We don't really get why or what happened, and his career has been kind of hard to keep up with ever since. It just kind of seems like he's just trying new things all the time. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do to stay in spotlight. Moving on to number 6, we have Charles Ross. The YouTuber who is known for his channel Ross Creation Revelations was once ranking in the views and subscribers until he got arrested for some of his content. People loved his content because all he did was pull ridiculous pranks on random people and film it. And some of them were innocently funny, but then he went too far by impersonating a cop. He dressed up as a cop and wrote a fake ticket to a woman while she was with her 2 children. He wrote her a ticket for parking, but once she realized that she was parked legally, she got angry and started questioning his credentials, which he obviously couldn't prove, so then she called the real cops and he ran. He was arrested and jailed, but then he was released on bond for $10,000. Since then, his YouTube channel has been quiet, as in no videos at all. Alright guys, we have made it halfway through and we have Lisa Nova. After she graduated from the University of Colorado, she headed to Hollywood to chase her dream as an actor. Along the way, she was introduced to YouTube and she started her own comedy channel in 2006. A casting director from Mad TV saw one of her YouTube videos and asked her to audition for the show, which she ended up starring on while doing her YouTube channel at the same time. But then in 2009, she founded Maker Studios with her brother, and in 2011, she just stopped making videos for her channel. Literally, just stopped. Disney ended up buying Maker Studio in 2014, and she hasn't been heard of since. Sounds like she was like hella successful. I'm like confused. I mean, she obviously made money off that buy, but... Here now at number 4 is Dax Flame. In the late 2000s, he was a popular YouTuber known for his exaggerated comedic vlogs. He was bringing in hundreds of thousands of views at the time, but then he randomly just stopped posting and would only post a couple times a year on very random occasions. He seemed to have shifted his focus because in 2014 he published a book called I'm Just Sitting on a Fence. His real name isn't Dax though, it's actually Madison Petrello, and we saw him pop up in a few major movies like 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street and Another Evil, but we haven't seen him in any movies since 2016, and he has also been quiet on the YouTube front as well, so not totally sure what he's getting up to these days. As in the last 4 years. Not just days, that's a lot of days. In the 3rd spot is Mac Freeman. This guy was pulling in millions of views back in the day after he created his channel called Waste Time Chasing Cars. He started the channel in 2006 and it soon became the platform for comedy short videos. Then in 2008, his videos titled Kobe Bryant Can't Jump Like Me and Lightsabers Are Fun went viral and he just skyrocketed into fame. But then in 2012, he suddenly stopped uploading videos. His last YouTube video has comments flooding it, asking what happened, and his vanishing act has been a hot topic on Reddit, with people debating what happened. Many fans were hoping that like years down the road he would like resurface by now, but he hasn't. He has actually not posted a video on his channel in 7 years. Taking over the number 2 spot is Hannah Minx. She was one of the first of her kind when she created her unique channel called Miss Hannah Minx. She would dress up as an anime character and give Japanese lessons. Her first video to go viral in 2009 was when she filmed a vlog about bicycles in Tokyo that amassed tons of views and sent her into stardom. She was in her prime when she randomly disappeared in 2013 from her channel and all of her social media pages. Like literally just gone. Because her social media went silent as well, rumors started spreading that she was missing or dead. Like literally. But then a Redditor provided screenshots from her personal Facebook page years down the road under a different name, Hannah Osterhagen. According to the screenshot, she left her career behind to get married and have children. At least say bye.
Coming in at 10, Sinead O'Connor. It's common knowledge that Irish singer Sinead O'Connor has faced a lot of trouble in her life. However, in 2016 it all came to a head when she was reported missing. Not once, but twice. The first disappearance occurred in May of 2016 after reports surfaced that O'Connor went for a bike ride in her Chicago suburb and never returned. The news instantly hit the media and rumors stated that O'Connor was classified as missing suicidal by police. However, she was later found safe at a hotel before she was transferred to a local hospital. A month after the incident, police went and searched for O'Connor once again after Irish authorities called to say she had threatened to jump off a bridge in Chicago. However, a little while after these reports surfaced, O'Connor took to Facebook to deny the rumors that she was suicidal. I quote, "Oh, and by the way, it's bullshit that I jumped off a bridge. Some stupid up at Swords Garden Station decided she'd like to throw a bit of false and malicious gossip about is all. I'm far too happy for that." Coming in at 9, Richie Edwards. Richie Edwards was the rhythm guitarist and lyricist for Manic Street Preachers, a mid-90s British rock band whom The Guardian called a lightning rod of sorts for adolescent angst. What a title. Now, Edwards infamously wrote a lot of songs about depression, however it was his publicity stunts that really triggered folks. On one particular occasion, Edwards was being interviewed by a journalist from NME, who implied that the band's posturing was insincere. So as a response, Edwards grabbed a razor blade and carved "for real" into his own arm. However, his behaviour took a turn for the worse when he was reported missing in February of 1995. The musician was due to fly to the US with a fellow band member, however, Edwards disappeared from his hotel room. His car was later found abandoned near the Severn Bridge, which connects England and Wales, and Edwards was legally declared dead in 2008, but his body has never been recovered. Coming in at number 8, Harold Holt. Back in the 60s, Harold Holt was known for being the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. However, just 2 years into his term, Holt went missing. In December of 1967, Holt went swimming at the deserted Cheviot Beach in Victoria. However, he never returned. The weather that day was terrible, and the Smithsonian recounts one person at the scene who claimed the surf was higher than they'd ever known it. Holt's body was never recovered, however, a 2005 investigation concluded he had drowned. However, it were the events that followed that made Holt's disappearance truly baffling. As you can imagine, a Prime Minister disappearing out of nowhere triggered a lot of conspiracy theories, resulting in Australian law at the time making an inquest into someone's death without a body illegal, even if that person was the leader of the country. What are they trying to hide? Coming in at 3, Jason Mewes. Jason Mewes, star of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, disappeared for almost 2 years after failing to show up for a related court appearance in 2002. He finally turned himself in and was sentenced to 6 months in rehab back in 2003. However, what resulted in him coming out of hiding was what caused the most speculation. According to Entertainment Weekly, Mewes woke up on Christmas morning from a induced sleep to find the couch he had passed out on engulfed in flames. This caused the actor to realize that he had hit rock bottom, resulting in him driving from California to New Jersey, where a warrant was out for his arrest. In the years that followed, Mewes struggled to get sober, however he finally got clean in 2010, and as of the time of this recording, a Jay and Silent Bob reboot is in the making. Coming in at number 2, Margot Kidder. Superman star Margot Kidder hid out in the bushes of a suburban California home back in the 90s. According to police, that is where they discovered her after she had been missing for 4 days back in April 1996. She was found dirty, frightened and paranoid with bruises and scratches on her body. Kidder was taken to a hospital for psychiatric evaluation, and according to The Independent, I quote, "At the time of her discovery, she was wearing disheveled, cast-off clothing and apparently cut off her own hair with a razor blade in an attempt to alter her appearance." Following the incident, Kidder later revealed she was suffering from manic depression and was working hard to better manage her disease. However, sadly on May 13th of 2018, Kidder passed away, taking her own life as a result of alcohol poisoning. And finally, coming in at number 1, Fan Bingbing. At one time, Fan Bingbing was one of China's highest paid stars and was catapulted into the limelight when she starred in 2014's X-Men Days of Future Past. However, not long after her fame was growing in the West, media was reporting that the actress had suddenly disappeared without a trace. Rumours began to surface that the actress was using phony contracts to commit tax evasion, with the Global Times reporting that Bingbing reported an income of $1.5 million in small contracts and $7.6 million in a larger contract, which was illegally treated as tax-free income. The Chinese later announced that the actress was placed in a secret detention facility but was released after she agreed to pay $130 million in back taxes. Upon her re-emergence, she issued an apology on social media stating, "I am deeply ashamed and guilty about what I have done. My sincere apologies to you." I mean, for $130 million, the apology could have been a little better. That's all I'm saying.
Starting off our list at number 10 is Angus T. Jones. The young actor made his big break on the show 2.5 Men, but quit the show after 10 long seasons. His reasoning for leaving the show was because he felt the show was filth. He even went as far as telling viewers to stop watching it. Angus explains that as he got older, he felt the show went against his religious views. It was reported that the young actor was earning about $350,000 an episode, but he still felt confident in his decision to walk away from the show. After leaving, he joined different Christian groups like Forerunner Chronicles, where he made testimonial videos about his faith. He ended up becoming the president of Entertainment at Tonight, which is an events company co-founded by Diddy's son, Justin. When asked if he has any interest in returning to acting, he he says, "The door is definitely still open for me to do that, but I am taking things slowly. I'm kind of liking the ability to travel and to move around at a moment's notice and not have to be in one spot for years at a time." Well, that is fair enough. Good news is he's still young and has a lot of time to make his return. At number 9 is Brittany Ashton Holmes. Ever wonder what happened to that adorable little Darla from Little Rascals? You know, the girl Alfalfa secretly loves and writes his famous line to. "Dear Darla, I hate your stinking guts. You make me vomit." I mean, if I got a letter that started out like that, I might quit acting too. The young actress was only 5 years old when she got the part in the movie remake of the classic show. The whole cast was great, but she definitely stole the show. After the movie was released, she continued to act but only got a handful of gigs. She ended up retiring from acting very early on in her career after she finished the 1996 sci-fi movie Inhumanoid. She went off to school and is currently working on getting a degree in political science and is now 30 years old. Before MySpace was deleted, she wrote, "I was an actress when I was little and did this movie called Little Rascals. It's like really embarrassing to watch and I don't want to act anymore." She is still living in LA though, so maybe one day we will see her on our screen once again. Swiping the number 8 spot is Peter Ostrom, also known as Charlie Bucket in the original 1971 Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The child actor was just 12 years old when he was selected to play the role. After the movie, he went on to say that he really enjoyed working on the film, but that he decided not to sign a 3-film contract when the movie was over. When he returned home from filming the movie, he says he grew an interest in horses and was interested in becoming a veterinarian one day. He no longer had an interest in being part of the Hollywood world. He ended up going to Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine in 1984 to receive his certificate. His earnings from the movie are actually what funded his purchase of his very first horse. During an interview with Express, he said, "Looking back, my paycheck was paltry, but it was during filming that I became interested in medicine. So I bought my first horse with my earnings, and that started my current career path as a vet." Later on in 2005, he moved to New York with his wife and 2 children, and as of 2018, he works out of the Countryside Veterinarian Clinic where he mainly works with horses and cows. As for acting, he says that he wanted to live a normal life and had declined reporters and interviews for a long period of time. He did admit that sometimes he misses acting, but says his life as a vet has also been his dream for many years. Taking the number 7 spot is Karen Parsons. She's famous for playing Hilary Banks on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Outside of the show, she had other acting success, but we haven't seen her on the big screen since 2002. Her last movie was 13 Moons, and her last TV series was The Job. She up and left her acting career after that and has been dedicating herself to changing the lives of other people. In 2013, she founded a non-profit organization that teaches kids all about figures in Black history. She called it Sweet Blackberry. She did an interview with Huffington Post where she spoke about the importance of her organization. She said, I quote, "When you only hear about a handful of stories, the message is, every once in a while a special Black person comes along. And that's a dangerous message to send to everyone. It does nothing but harm the idea of Black people. I think it's really important to tell these stories because there are lessons to be learned. Incredible lessons about perseverance and determination and opportunity to do something great." Her organization did a project that shared the story of the first Black female pilot named Bessie Coleman, which ended up being a huge success. And at number 6 is Michael Schofling. He won the hearts of many young girls when he took on the role of Jake Ryan in the classic movie 16 Candles. He started the movie back in 1984 and quit acting not that long after in 1991. Fans were wondering whatever happened to the heartthrob, and we later found out that in between booking roles, he got into making furniture. He now has a successful furniture business in his home in Pennsylvania. When asked about why he made the career path switch, he told LA Times, "Actors spend most of their time out of work, so I actually spend more time making furniture. The thing about furniture that's much better than acting is that it's just me. There's no director, no script, the concept is me, unless a client wants something. In film work, you do the best you can under the given circumstances, but you don't have control. At least I don't." Well, I'm sure people would love the chance at buying a chair from Jake Ryan. Halfway through at number 5 is Barrett Oliver. Some say he was the most talented child actor of the 80s after he took on the role as Bastian in The Neverending Story. After the success that 1984 movie brought him, he went on to star in movies like The Twilight Zone and The Secret Garden. People thought he was well on his way to be the next Hollywood star, but he ended up ditching acting at the young age of 16. In 2004, there was an update on where he was at in his life, and it confirmed that he was a photography teacher in California, where he holds workshops and demonstrations about the craft. One fan visited his photo exhibition in California and posted online saying he has a full beard, wears glasses, and has long hair. His voice was recognizable, he wasn't really tall, and spoke quietly. And let me tell you, they were not lying. He doesn't show any signs of regret or desire to return to Hollywood or acting, and fans aren't totally sure if he would even be able to at this point. Here we are at number 4 with Jeff Cohen. You might remember him from his role as Chunk in the legendary The Goonies. The classic movie came out in 1985, and he continued his acting career up until 1991. When asked why he left the industry, he cracks jokes saying that puberty forced him into early retirement as a child actor. He explains that as he got older, finding work was a lot more difficult. Once acting was out of the picture, he found a passion for law and attended the University of California, Berkeley, earning a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. The former actor went on to become a lawyer, and in 2008 he was named one of the top 35 executives under 35 years of age. He continues to be a successful lawyer and says that acting has benefited his legal career because it makes him more empathetic for his clients and less academic. He has also done work for the Huffington Post and BNBC from time to time about business and legal subjects, so I guess he's still in Hollywood in some sense. In at number 2 is Jake Lloyd. The once child star took on the role of the young Anakin Skywalker in the highly anticipated Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. What would seem like the opportunity of a lifetime was quickly taken from him when the movie didn't live up to its expectations. It was said that his performance got lumped into the overall fan disappointment of the movie. Before that though, he did book some other roles on TV series like ER and The Pretender, but it seems like after Star Wars he left his acting career behind. Between the years 1999 to 2002, he has smaller credits, but mostly for being the voice on Star Wars video games. Since then, the actor has made headlines, but for all the wrong reasons. We have learned that he suffers from schizophrenia and also had a few run-ins with the law. Taking our number 1 spot is Danny Lloyd. For decades, horror fans have been asking author Stephen King, what happened to that kid from The Shining? Well, I am here to give you the very unscary truth. He became a pig farmer and a science teacher. The actor at the time was only 5 years old, and now he is in his 40s, married, and a father of 6. In 2013, he did his first episode since he was a kid with Daily News, where he opened up about his normal life, saying that people don't recognize him when he goes out in public. He explained that he did continue acting but ended up giving up when he was a teenager. He said, I quote, "We kept trying for several years until I was in high school, and I stopped at about 14 with almost no success." Danny says he enjoyed being in the movie but went on to work at a local Walmart and drove a tractor on a hog farm. Now he teaches biology at a community college outside of Louisville. He watched The Shining for the first time when he was 16 years old with a group of friends and says that he was not scared. Just a few weeks ago, the sequel to the movie dropped its official trailer for Dr. Sleep. And
number 10, objectified early in his career. The less discussed topic in Hollywood is now becoming an increasing trend of the sexualization of men on and off screen. Brendan was heavily objectified early in his career, as a lot of his success was due to his scenes where he was made to go shirtless. In the movie George of the Jungle, Brendan spent most of his screen time only wearing a loincloth, which had the actor wondering how he was being portrayed. The actor said when he looked at himself, all he could see was a walking steak. He also admitted that his role ultimately earned his image as an action hero. However, the role demands had left the actor feeling exhausted, and that's why he turned down the reprisal of the role George of the Jungle 2. The role was so stressful he didn't want to put himself through it for a second time in a row. Even though the star turned down the role, the early objectification would ultimately stay with the star, and they would later come back to highlight the key stages that led to his difficulties with Hollywood later. Number 9. Ruined confidence. In an interview with GQ, Brendan explained, the former president of Hollywood Foreign Press Association, Philip Burke, made unwanted sexual advances. Brendan explained it happened in the middle of a crowded room in a Beverly Hills hotel, and at the time he was left feeling overwhelmed and panicked with fear. However, the aftermath would be even worse. After receiving a non-apology from HFPA and Burke, the star fell into a depression and started to avoid the company of people. During the time, he also started to question what he was even doing. The overall incident called to the fact that men were also being harassed in the industry. For Brendan, it was just one of many things, which would almost destroy his acting career. When Brendan went to speak about his work, he says he felt like something was taken from him and that he found himself wondering why the HFPA would blacklist him after he was invited to the Global Globes after 2003. If one thing's for sure, they chose to blacklist him to sweep a scandal under the carpet, and that just wasn't right. Number 8. Acting choices reflected his self-worth. It seems that Brendan's personal life always seemed to influence his acting work, and in his early confidence on screen and off, in 2002 in an interview with Yahoo Entertainment, Brendan noted he was in the running to play Superman, and he was clearly really excited about dressing up as the hero. He stated that it made him feel like he was invincible. Sadly, later on in this movie, it would be cancelled, and the star took the cancellation to heart and noted he was left feeling like a giant failure. In 2003, when the star had an incident with Philip Burke, the star's sense of self-worth was completely destroyed. However, he ended up taking on a role in Looney Tunes Back in Action, always purely for the chance to portray the worst version of himself. After feeling humiliated, Brendan would then go on to retreat from the public view. While many people would turn to their families during this time of need, in 2009 he and his wife would divorce, and he would have no one to turn to, which derailed his career even further. Number 7. Publicly body shamed. The tabloids have always been known for their mean-spirited gossip pieces, and to no surprise, they would constantly post unflattering photographs of the actor with demeaning comments about his appearance. While Brendan was enjoying a beach vacation to spend more time with his family, numerous websites were quick to gawk at the fact that the star gained weight. Over the past decade, people have become aware of the effects of body shaming can have, and they've noted that shaming someone for the way they look is humiliation to the exact form of bullying. Over the time, it has become increasingly unacceptable in the public eye, but at the time, Brendan didn't have the support to defend him from the abuse he faced from the tabloids till now. Brendan has also noticed, with all the negative backlash he was receiving from the celebrity gossip headlines, it made him depressed, and he felt like he was unable to maintain an athletic physique because he was going through an extreme health issue, and these issues caused him to regularly check into a hospital. Number 6. 7 years in and out of the hospital. When Brendan Fraser rose to become an action hero in the 2008 film Mummy, it came at the expense of his physical health. When he recounts his time filming for the third Mummy movie, he said he had to adopt a daily routine of covering himself in ice packs. He also would specifically choose a thin, light pack of ice to conceal under his clothing. His no-problem approach to work through the paid dates all the way back to his first movie in 1991, Dogfight, where he bruised a rib during a stunt. The star at the time said, "That's okay, I'll take it. I can do it again. If you want, I'll break it." Brendan would keep this attitude with him for over a decade and a half, and it started to take a severe toll on his overall health. Brendan's body became so damaged that he would spend 7 years repeatedly visiting hospitals, and he would have numerous surgeries and procedures. The worst part that came with not listening to his body is that he needed multiple back surgeries, a partial knee replacement, and both of these procedures required extensive physical therapy and recovery time. In addition, he has to have an operation on his throat to repair his vocal cords. Living in America, the star would have to pay out of pockets to these procedures, and ultimately this led to the star to have some financial difficulties. If this situation has taught us anything, is that you need to listen to your body. If you feel hurt, say something, and if you feel like you need a break, take a break, because you never know what's going to happen. Number 5. Left behind by the world. In 2016, Brendan's appearance in an interview would leave many viewers to feel concerned for his overall health. Many noted that they were worried for the star as he appeared depressed, and they were right because he was. Speaking later in an interview, the star would go on to say he didn't realize how he was feeling at the time during the interview, as he was at the time grieving about the passing of his mother. The star would also go on to say that he's been trying to keep out of the spotlight for so long, and it was a shock to be back in the hot seat of it. It's been quite some time since he had made a formal press appearance, and the show he was promoting was one he was not particularly featured in. The star noted that the show felt new and unfamiliar to him and gave him a feeling he was feeling old. Since keeping out of the public eye, the world kept moving on without him. Even the Mummy franchise he was most famous for would no longer involve him, as Tom Cruise would go on to be casted in his role. Number 4. Afraid to speak out during the Me Too movement. When Brendan finally had enough courage to speak out about being an SA victim in 2018, his interviews showed how hesitant he was to do so. With many survivors often having trouble coming forward for many reasons, it was totally understandable why the star was feeling the way he did. At the time, Brendan was struggling to contend with how the situation made him feel, and he didn't want it to become a defining part of his life any longer. For 15 years, the star decided to keep quiet until he was empowered to say something by the hashtag #MeToo movement. While this movement did start in 2010, Brendan said he had difficulty saying anything he wanted to say for so long, but he talked himself out of it. He was frightened, but felt like it was his duty to say something. And it wasn't until he saw others coming forward that he felt like he was ready to speak up about how he felt, and then he had a voice in the movement. He ended up following advice from Carrie Fisher, who once said, "Stay afraid, but do it anyways." This helped him speak out about what he was going through so others wouldn't have to endure the same pain. Number 3, return to action movies canceled. Being known for his casting in action movies, Brendan was supposed to make a triumphant return to them in 2022 with the release of DC's Batgirl. He was set to be playing a villainous Firefly. The character was described as a veteran who lost his beliefs and took a villainy approach to solve his problems. Unfortunately for Brendan, who was struggling financially at the time of Batgirl was cancelled for tax purposes, and the movie has been put away indefinitely, the decision was disappointing for anybody involved. However, Brendan was concerned that the cancellation of the film would hurt his comeback efforts. Hopefully for Brendan, this won't be the case, and he's able to book something soon and show Hollywood what they truly been missing. Number 2, relates to the horse from Animal Farm. Brendan finds the horse from Animal Farm really relatable to who he is. The horse Boxer is selfless and good-natured character who adopts the mindset that whenever something goes wrong, he must simply work harder. Brendan noted that he felt that Boxer's job was to work, and that he also shared the same type of mentality when it came to his own work. The Animal Farm horse even lent to Brendan to rescue a horse from a History Channel set in Mexico. Brendan said, "The horse looked at him and said he needed help and to get me out of here, man." So the star adopted the horse, named him, and brought him back to his farm in Bedford, New York. Brendan then highlighted that when the character had severe injuries, he was able to connect because they were both pushing themselves too hard and taking self-destructive measures to get the job done. With the unspoken subtext of Boxer's story, it's easy to see why the star felt such a huge connection to the story and the horse, because both live a really trusting life, which caused both to be taken advantage of, and still at the end of the day, they continue to go on tirelessly. Number 1, his return has had some mixed reactions. With all of Brendan Fraser's experience, it makes sense why out of all the careers he could have had, he chose acting, especially when it came to him starring in the film The Whale. His character is a man that was extremely affected by weight gain, which is something Brendan has had first-hand experience with. However, according to Marie Claire, the movie had already had mixed reactions over Fraser's use of a fat suit in the role. With prosthetics like this one usually relating to fat suits being used in films in the past, it's led to fat phobias, which can be really damaging to people watching the film. Brendan did come out to say that unlike the harmful bodysuits used in comedy movies, The Whale was not just a one-note joke. Having mistreated his own body himself for his work in the past, and being a target of fat phobia himself, he wanted the audience to be sympathetic about the way people look. Bigger-bodied people in cinema have been portrayed in mean-spirited ways for far too long, and it's time for that to change. Regardless of how much work the actor put into his portrayal of himself and how he struggled with his own weight, sadly, the actor's comeback didn't come without sticking a few points.